People think I'm jealous of Jereze. Jereze is by far my younger person in me, by far. He's not even like a son to me, he'll be a son to my sons. You want to serve the people of God, you must be an example.
The people where they argue with, should you say what God cannot do does not exist, or what God will not do does not exist? I beg, forge your own and then make your own go viral.
What's up, my people? How una dey waiting they happen waiting this up? See, guys, I never knew that the phrase "what God cannot do does not exist" has caused a huge problem online before, until recently. And I noticed that after I shared my opinion or the video about Daddy Freeze and Jerry Easy, where Daddy Freeze insinuated that Pastor Jerry Easy, staged his miracles or fake them, to get people's attention and also to make more money. And he want people to pay attention to pastors like this. So I went back to check. Has there been a time where we had this conversation on social media? Now, do not get me wrong. I've seen videos of Pastor Jerry Easy, on social media. I know that he's a pastor. I recognize his face, but I'm not a fan of Pastor Jerry Easy. Even this NSPPD, this thing. I've seen a couple of people share the link, and even some friends have shared the link with me where I will click, check, oh, is this pastor? But I wasn't aware of the controversies. So I realized that this has been an issue, a lingering issue on social media, where pastors have actually shared their 2 cents about this phrase, "what God cannot do does not exist." In fact, I watched a video of Daddy Freeze where he said that what God cannot do exists. In fact, that is the title of that video. It's available on YouTube. He shared his own opinion about it.
I want to ask you, the least place on earth where people love themselves is Nigeria, despite all your religion. So what am I trying to tell you? It has failed you. Now let me teach you the truth before you lead innocent souls to their damnation. So saying that what God cannot do does not exist, you are diminishing the power of God.
I'm trying to understand, because it's like this pastor's phrase, "what God cannot do does not exist," is being misconstrued. As much as I'm not a fan of this man, I know what he was trying to say. So I watched this podcast recently, the Honest Bunch podcast, where they interviewed Pastor Abel, and he made reference to that. He shared some Bible verses, right? And he also said that whoever is teaching something outside of the Bible is cursed or something.
People think I'm jealous of Jereze. Jereze is by far my younger person in me, by far. He's not even like a son to me, he'll be a son to my sons. So I have nothing to envy him for, because it's not about sentiment, it's about knowing what the truth is. What God cannot do does not exist. It's not in the Bible. Now, it's important you know that, because it's not about sentiment, it's about knowing what the truth is. What God cannot do does not exist. It's not the truth, because there are many things that God cannot do that exist. God cannot steal. Stealing exists. God cannot lie. Lying exists. God cannot die. Death exists. God cannot marry. Marriage exists. I mean, there are many things. In fact, James tells us in James chapter 1 verse 13, "Let no man say when he's tempted, I'm tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted."
I think even that the phrase I've said it, that he said something, leading innocent souls to damnation. That's what that means. Like, if you're deceiving people with such phrase. And I also went back to check, okay, this thing have been going on for a while. What did Pastor Jerry Easy say about this? His reaction about, this particular phrase, because it seems like this phrase is causing a lot of problems, and they are linking it to, the miracles, the miracle videos, and also what happened in the UK.
But I guess I just address the small one where somebody they talk say there are things where God no fit do. You say what God cannot do, God cannot lie. God can. The Bible say, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. I go smoke Igbo. No. I go sleep with somebody who will not be my wife. But Bible say I can do all. The problem say they don't understand context. So what they talk say, what God cannot do, everything that is in the nature of God, that what he cannot do does not exist. The whole brain is given, sense is expected.
My own understanding of this particular phrase, which I think if truly there is a supernatural God who can think, I believe he will understand. I don't know, I might be wrong, but he will understand what Pastor Jerry is trying to say. Because it's like what you are accusing this man of is probably what you are doing. I'll share more reasons why I think these people are judging and also trying to put themselves up there. I'm not a fan of any one of them. I was never a fan of any one of them. I'm not a fan of them. But it's just I sense that if eventually you get to this pedestal, which Pastor Jerry is now, there will be different people who will come for you, including pastors. Now, I don't know whether Pastor Jerry is fake or not, but I'm saying that there are some things that we just look at directly without sentiment or without being biased and say, but this is what it is. Okay, my own understanding about this is what God cannot do does not exist is often used to emphasize the belief that God is all powerful and capable of anything. In fact, I feel like it reflects the idea that there are no limits to God's abilities and that everything is within his power to accomplish. But, Pastor Abel, or Dr. Abel, I don't know, is of the opinion that this thing is not in the Bible, and this particular man is leading his sheep astray. While I was watching that of Pastor, is it Dr. Abel? I don't know if he calls himself a pastor or something. But while I was watching it, right, he quoted a Bible verse, right? I have forgotten this Bible verse, but I remember searching it on Google because I'm not good with all these verses. I searched it on Google just to be sure that this man knows what he's saying and is correct. Now, I want to say something. I watched that interview. That man is a brilliant man. He's gifted. Pastor Abel, gifted man. His surname is Damina. Smart. There were so other things that he said that I agree with, right? Other things that he said I agree with. Even that the phrase, there are other things that the phrase says that I agree with. I'm sure even you, when you watch me, there are some things that I will say that you would disagree, with me. And there are other things that I will say that you would be like, good job. That's normal, right? So this is my own, right? So I went to check. I'm going to put the Bible verse because I've forgotten, but I remember I actually went to search it on Google and I copy and paste it, so I can remember. But I forgot to put down the. Can I? Okay, it's Galatians 1 verse 8. I think that's the chapter and the verse. So it says, but even if we or an angel from heaven should preach a gospel other than the one we preach to you, let them be under God's curse, as we have already said. So now I say again, if anybody is preaching to you a gospel other than what you accepted, let them be under God's curse. So that was the verse Pastor Abel used to defend his own take on what God cannot do does not exist. I was like, is it this deep?
So whatever your experiences are, if you cannot substantiate them from the scriptures, keep it somewhere or trash it. The scriptures remain the ultimate final authority where the knowledge of God is concerned. So it doesn't matter what experience somebody had. If it cannot be substantiated with the scriptures, you trash it.
Well,
Paul said in Galatians chapter 1, though we or an angel from heaven come to tell you anything apart from what we have written, let him be accursed. That word accursed is the word anathema. It means let him be cut off. Don't take him serious.
I also saw some videos where some pastors, while trying to prove Pastor Jerry is wrong, they said that God cannot die, eat, lie, sleep, urinate, weep, repent. It became ridiculous at some point. Like, what? And they continue to say, God, can God depend on others? Worship others? Can God be given birth to, suckled and protected from evil? And I'm like, nah, I don't think that's what I understand from that phrase. Now, this man said that, I cannot fight with Pastor Jerry. Is like a grandson to me, and which I think is him trying to, show respect. Like, look, I'm not going to say something, negative about this guy. This guy is not a small boy to me. Understandable. Until we got to a point where they were talking about Arrangy miracles. So Arrangy miracles simply means staged miracles. I even said myself that even me, I believe in miracles. So you understand. In fact, there are some things that I will pray about in my house, within the confine of my environment, and it will come to fruition. And even back then, I will go to the church, pray that God, I want this, and to work out. I've said it before. Some people might call it coincidence and stuff, but I usually say something. If your faith is attached to something, it will come to fruition because you believe with the help of that thing that is attached to. It will come to fruition. So this man said that all these miracles that you see out there, they are arranging miracles, and yet he claims that his own miracles are real. So you are a pastor. Let's just be realistic. So you are a pastor. You are saying that other miracles, that you see out there, although it didn't specifically say Pastor Jerry Eze's miracle is arranging miracles, right? But it was during the time he was talking about this, that he mentioned that. When they asked him, how did you know that it's staged? He said, didn't you see new clutches, new wheelchairs? That's how you get to know that it's arranged.
Are you saying the miracles are arranging?
Can't you see most of those crutches are all the same color? They're all brand new.
And in Pastor Jerry Eze's video, somebody, the child that was healed was put in a wheelchair.
Papa, look at her go. Papa, look at her go.
Which also looks new. That's why I connected the dot that, okay, maybe this man is indirectly talking to Pastor Jerry Eze. But I don't know. Now you want me to believe that your own miracles, they are real. He said, I have prayed for somebody that's lost their sight or that's blind, and they got healed. He didn't stop there. He said that I have even, prayed for someone that was already dead, not breathing anymore, and they came back to life. That means he raised the dead. So all these serious miracles, and yet you are saying that you are condemning other miracles. At this point then, it's like everybody, they are out here talking about these pastors to sell themselves. Me, I don't know who be real pastor. Anybody, all of them, I don't know who be real pastor. But it's more like it's a hard pill to swallow for these people to see another person gaining the attention more than them.
So I've experienced miracles.
Sure.
I've prayed for somebody that was blind and his eyes opened in Akwa Ibom. that was blind. He came to our crusade. His eyes opened. I've seen miracles. I've raised somebody from the dead. I even have a mark on my finger where I was trying to open the teeth because the teeth had already jammed. And the teeth hit my finger and cut it. And then after praying for a while, the lady came back to life. Her name is Ada. I've seen miracles.
I mean, there were other things that he said that I kind of agree with him, about his opinion about tithe and talking about Pastor Jeremiah and VDM, saying that you cannot sell holy water.
And again, don't forget, our God is not a transactionary God. He gave us everything. And he does not expect us to give him anything for him to do anything for us. The Bible tells us Jesus is full of grace and truth, and it is of his fullness that we all have received grace and for grace. The Bible says a man can receive nothing except it be given from above. So we give to support the work of God when we are impacted by the ministry that ministers to us, and we don't give for transactionary purposes. We give in honor, we give out of gratitude and appreciation, expecting nothing in return.
Now, about the money part. So I've talked about what God cannot do does not exist. I've talked about arranging miracles.
It is not acting, which is one thing I pray to God every day. I'm sincerely in that place where all I desire with all of this, growing numbers is that Jesus be pleased. That is all I desire. As in, I don't know what else that, comes to my heart every day, more than the fact that I just want God be glorified in everything. Just look at us and be happy. Look at us and don't feel like, okay, they've joined this bandwagon again. May we never, in our journey, it's a heartbeat for me. May we never, what comes with this whole thing? The attention, the people who want you, the nations of the world. I mean, it's growing. And my desire is just to make sure that I'm still in that space where my heart, I just want to keep loving God. I just want to see him keep working on me, helping me to live for him. That's all I want. I don't want to, when these things get on and then you are in that space where everybody, I just want to love God and just keep doing the right thing. Never coming to a point in my life where, you're caught up with a frenzy and you start losing balance. Yeah. So that's just my, I'm sorry.
Now, about offering, where does it really go? I also realized that Pastor Jerry have addressed this, because here's my own. Me, they calm down, they check. Where are the loose ends? Has this person addressed this in the past? Has he talked about it? And I realized that this man has actually talked about it, and about where the offering goes, and it kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense that this is what you use to push the ministry of God.
You know how it is that they don't know. Maybe they are so influenced by social media that you imagine that every offering you give to church automatically goes into the pastor's pocket. Is a pastor who is not planning a future for you that will do that. But if they know that this ministry is transgenerational, if you want, they can open their books and show you that what you are giving, you are not giving to them, you are giving to the ministry. So sometimes they sit back and say, Pastor is great, Pastor is doing all right.
So that's an assumption that pastor is always okay.
Ask them now, they are here, then they are looking at us now. Yes. So they always assume. Are you hearing? Yes, they're always, Pastor is doing okay. I mean, Pastor, is he not the one that just came back from summer, the other time, and then they just go on and on, but they don't have an idea that even if it is for the purpose of saying, we see you, sir, we see what you're doing.
There's been this whole news, of course, about Pastor Jerry Easy making millions and millions and millions, and he, before it became known, right, on social media, how much he makes from YouTube alone, right, he has talked about this, about the whole thing. And I remember saying that even the place, the stadium he rented, I'm sure he was the one who paid for that stadium to get there. I'm sure people didn't pay to enter there. So these are some of the things that they are using the money for. And we also have to understand this is a young man. So here's my thoughts. A younger generation, a pastor that is from a younger generation or that is for a younger generation thinks differently. Depend. And that's where I got to understand is I might be wrong. I'm not talking like I am right. Before the arrival of Jesus Christ, the prophets that were there before the arrival of Jesus Christ were all the serious, even God of that time was. Then Jesus came. Everything changed because it was a new generation, right? As long as you are still, following the rules and regulation of the Bible, I feel like your mode, the way you carry yourself, the way you as long as your heart is clean, in this new generation will definitely be different from people like during the time of Pastor Kumuyi, Adeboye, and that's why Pastor Kumuyi was able to tell us that we shouldn't watch TV then. And now he's saying that, yeah, you can go ahead and watch TV. I only said it. Was it in the Bible? No, it's not in the Bible. But nobody is perfect. So people listen to them because it was that time. Social media wasn't there. Some people can stay, not watching TV. They can listen to radio. Who wants to even listen to radio now? When we have phone, then there was no phone. So it can tell people, don't watch TV. So with newer generation comes different behavior. That is my own understanding. And Pastor Abel, the way he's taking this whole thing, it's like you have to do this particular thing. It has to be done like.
Don't just speak because it sounds popular. What God cannot do does not exist. Don't copy cliches. Follow doctrine. Don't follow cliches by motivational speakers. Follow sound teaching so you can have a sound life. My steps are ordered. My going out is blessed. My coming in is blessed. My life is intentional. I do not live accidentally. No, my life is calculated with precision. So the outcome of my life is exact. I know exactly what I will be like in the next 5 years. My life is not an accident. My life is predestined and pre-designed by God.
I'm going to end it with this. I feel like, or let me put it this way. I don't care about how much anybody makes or pastor makes. I don't care. But I will always say that as a Christian, just use your head. Think. So if you are the type of person that, feel like, okay, I'm going to see my pastor, let me buy some gifts, at all, let me just buy it and say, Pastor, take. It is you. Don't give and expect that, you are giving to get a miracle immediately. It is you. Now you won't give. And I hope you can also do the same thing to another person that's not a pastor. Then you're only being selfish. God is not dumb. You're only being selfish. Anyways, like I said, I want to believe that our God is not dumb. I'm not a pastor, but I just wanted to, share this with you guys and let you know that yes, I actually went back to check everything because I was confused. Like, what's the buzz about? Why is this whole thing so big now? Then I realized that it has been a lingering problem from the past. Anyways, guys, that's where I'm going to hold it. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video, subscribe, until we see you next time. Peace.
Until you've seen a situation of 3 family members having cancer at the same time, and then they've gone through treatment, and I remember these things every morning. I come to the altar, and then if you imagine the number of devices put on, whether it's on YouTube, on Facebook, how many people will connect, so you can imagine how much issues we have to deal with, and people who send us too many prayer requests, and all that. Sometimes I'm just overwhelmed, and I'm saying to, and because my heart is in this, you don't know. Every time, there's people who work with me know. Every time someone is healed, the joy. The joy, I could tell my peers, I'm so excited. God, I'll be sharing testimonies with them and all of, because I just want to see people smile. I mean, I hate anything that represents evil, so every time I come, the burden can't even go away. The burden can't even go away because sometimes if God doesn't even place the burden in your heart, the things you're seeing, the messages you're seeing, if we finish this interview, if I bring out my phone now without anything and I show you, you'll just see a list of, this one and all of that. I've had to change numbers, but it's not working. So you still have these messages enter into how the new one goes out and people find that one and it just goes out. People are hurting.
I'm going to tell you 5 things that God cannot do. So if that thing you're praying for is not in God's character, He cannot and will not do it. Let me give you some of the things that God cannot do. Number 1, God cannot and does not tolerate false worship. Revelation chapter 22 verse 15, outside the city, God's city, are the sorcerers, the murderers, and everybody who loves and practices falsehood. If you practice falsehood, you are lost. Remember what happened to those who built a golden calf in Exodus chapter 32 and they dedicated it to the Lord. What happened to them? God called it an abomination and struck them. God cannot tolerate false worship. John chapter 4 clearly tells us to worship God. You have to worship Him in spirit and in truth. If you don't have truth in your worship, you can't worship God. Isaiah chapter 66 verse 3. But whosoever sacrifices a bull is like one who kills a person, and whoever sacrifices a lamb is like one who breaks a dog's neck, and whoever makes a grain offering is like one presenting pig's blood, and whosoever burns memorial incense is like one who worships an idol. They have chosen their own way and they delight in their own abominations. Unless you do what God is telling you, you will be worshiping God in vain. Number 2, very important, God cannot be tempted by evil money. You cannot steal government money. You cannot dupe someone and pay tithe out of it. You cannot take 1 billion out of investors' money and give to God. You cannot, because God does not tempt and He cannot be tempted. James chapter 1 verse 13. When tempted, no one should say God is tempting me, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does He tempt anyone. Number 3, God cannot disown Himself or deny who He is. 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 13. If we are faithless, He remains faithful, for He cannot disown Himself. New Living Translation says He cannot deny who He is. Number 4, God cannot lie, whether you like to believe it or not. According to Hebrews chapter 6 verse 18, God did this so that by 2 unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie. And number 5, God cannot learn anything new. He knows everything, so you can't teach God anything. 1 John chapter 3 verse 20. If our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts and He knows everything. So you going around saying what God cannot do does not exist, it means your IQ is low, your intelligence is low, your understanding of scripture is low, and you don't know God and who that God you are worshiping. That God that is keeping the light from your eyes. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 4. Satan who blinded their eyes so they cannot see the glorious light of the gospel. You think God is worshiping God is by typing up and down saying what God cannot do does not exist. I just told you 5 things God cannot do. Debunk me with scripture. So it is intensely ignorant for you to say what God cannot do does not exist.